Afternoon, everybody. It's 3 o'clock, and I will call to order this June 7, 2022 meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Greater Dayton Regional Transit Authority. This meeting is being conducted remotely on the Zoom video conference platform pursuant to Substitute House Bill 51. I ask that all persons remain on mute unless and until called upon to speak. Will all persons rise and recite with me the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Harrington, for providing Old Glory for this meeting. Next time, if you could have it blowing in the wind, that would be great, but you don't want to press you too much. So, will the secretary please call the roll of board members?
Yes, sir. Mr. Williamson?
Present.
Mr. Corrado?
Present.
Mr. Fullenkamp?
Present.
Ms. Hairston?
Present.
Ms. Hurd?
Present.
Ms. Howard?
Present.
Ms. Matthews-Stenson?
Present.
Mr. Lumpkin?
Here.
Mr. Weckeser?
Here.
And Mr. Williamson. We have 9 of 9 present.
Thank you. The roll having been called, the chair declares that a quorum is present. The bylaws of the Greater Dayton Regional Transit Authority require that prior to a meeting of the Board of Trustees, the board approves the agenda for the meeting. Prior to today's meeting, a copy of today's meeting agenda was provided to all board members for review. Does the executive director or any board member have any requested changes or corrections to or objections to the approval of today's agenda? Hearing none, the chair will declare the agenda approved as presented. Also prior to today's meeting, the minutes of the May 3rd, 2022 board meeting were provided to all board members for review. Does any board member request a reading of the minutes, have any changes or corrections to, or have any objections to the approval of the minutes? Hearing none, the chair will declare the minutes of the May 3rd, 2022 board meeting approved as presented. That brings us to our committee reports. First up is Finance Personnel Committee. Ms. Matthews-Stenson.
Good afternoon. The Finance, Personnel, and Planning Committees held a meeting on May 17th, and as a result, the Finance Personnel Committee is recommending 2 action items for the board's consideration. Action item number 2, resolution number 2022-6-1, fiscal year 2022 49 United States Code 5307, 5337, 5339, 5310, and other federal capital assistance claims. 49 U.S. Code 5307 authorizes grants to public transit systems in urbanized areas for capital, operating, and planning assistance based on formulas used in the statute. 49 U.S.C. 5337 and 5339 authorize grants to public transit systems in urbanized areas for capital assistance to support and maintain fixed guideway assets and other capital assets in a state of good repair. The Greater Dayton RTA can use this funding for the purchase of electric trolley buses, modernization of trolley infrastructure, the capitalization of maintenance costs, and other supporting facilities and equipment projects, as well as to maintain capital assets in a state of good repair. These funds are based on formulas used in the statute. 49 U.S. 5310 provides funds to the region to support projects that serve the elderly and disabled. Resolution number 2022-6-1 provides authorization to file fiscal year 2022 USC 5307, 5337, 5339, 5310, and other federal capital assistance grants. The projects applied for will be consistent with RTA approved capital and operating budgets. Prior year funding levels for programs were $14.01 million for 5307, $12.82 million for 5337, and $1.2 million for 5339, and $0.68 million for 5310. 2022 funding is anticipated at $16.92 million for 5307, $19.54 million for 5337, $1.5 million for 5339, with 5310 funds yet to be determined, but expected to be similar to the 2021 funding level. All projects will be from RTA approved fiscal year 2022 capital and operating budgets. Mr. Rosinski presented this action item at our meeting, and the supporting information is included in today's board package. Bob is available to answer any questions the board may have at this time. Hearing none, based upon the recommendation of the Finance Personnel Committee, I move that the Board of Trustees approve Resolution number 2022-6-1, authorizing the filing of 49 USC 5307, 5337, 5339, 5310, and other federal capital grant applications for RTA fiscal year 2022 with the Federal Transit Administration. Furthermore, the Chief Executive Officer is authorized to provide all necessary documents, execute grant contracts, amend the grant contracts if deemed necessary, and fulfill all other requirements of the application.
This is
Motion.
Adrian Hurd. I will second that motion.
Motion's been made by Ms. Stenson, properly seconded by Ms. Hurd. Is there any further discussion, questions, or comments from the board? Hearing none, I will ask the secretary to call the roll for the vote.
Yes, sir. Mr. Williamson,
Yes.
Mr. Corrado,
Yes.
Mr. Follenkamp,
Yes.
Ms. Hairston,
Yes.
Ms. Hurd,
Yes.
Ms. Howard,
Yes.
Mr. Lumpkin,
Yes.
Ms. Matthews Stinson,
Yes.
and Mr. Weckesser.
Yes.
We have 9 yeses.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. The roll having been called, the motion carries and the action item is approved.
Thank you. Action item number 3, resolution number 2022-6-2. State fiscal years 2022 and 2023 Ohio Urban Public Transportation Grant Program application. The Ohio Department of Transportation provides financial assistance to public transportation systems in Ohio through the Ohio Urban Public Transportation Grant Program. Current funding opportunities are offered under the Urban Formula Program and the Preservation Partnership Program. The Greater Dayton RTA intends to use state-awarded funds for preventive maintenance or other capital projects based on budget need. Because of the state fiscal year July 1st through June 30th, eligible projects can be selected from either the RTA's 2022 or 2023 list of eligible projects. Historically, RTA has applied under the Urban Transit Program, as well as the Ohio Transit Preservation Partnership Program. In addition, we have applied for funding under some Ohio EPA programs, which are open to the Ohio public transit systems. Other funding opportunities may arise and will be considered for application based on program requirements and current needs. Mr. Rosinski presented this item at our meeting, and the supporting documents are included in today's board package. Bob is available to answer any questions the board may have at this time.
Do I have a second?
This is Sharon Hairston. I second.
I haven't made the motion yet.
Oh,
Okay. Hearing no questions, based upon the recommendation of the Finance Personnel Committee, I move that the Board of Trustees approve resolution number 2026-6-2, authorizing the filing of various applications for eligible projects under the State of Ohio Public Transportation Grant Programs for state fiscal years 2022 and 2023.
This is Sharon Hairston. I second.
the chair apologizes for doing something Mr. Lumpkin remembers, and that's jumping off sides. So the motion has been properly made and seconded. Is there any more discussion, questions, or comments about the action item?
Just a note for the minutes, the motion is for resolution number 2022-6-2.
Correct.
Something other than that? Thank you.
With that clarification, I will ask the secretary to call the roll for the vote on the motion.
Yes, sir. Mr. Williamson,
Yes.
Mr. Corrado,
Yes.
Mr. Fullenkamp,
Yes.
Ms. Hairston,
Yes.
Ms. Hurd. Hello, Ms. Hurd.
Yes. Can you hear me? Yes?
Yes, thank you. Ms. Howard,
Yes.
Mr. Lumpkin,
Yes.
Ms. Matthews Stinson,
Yes.
Mr. Weckesser.
Yes.
We have 9 in agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. The roll having been called, the motion carries and action item number 3 is approved.
Thank you very much. There are a couple of other items to mention at our meeting. Mrs. Stanforth reviewed the April 2022 financial report regarding revenues. Year-to-date passenger fare revenue is $1.162 thousand compared to a $1.6 million budget. Same time last year, we were at 1.6 million actual. Sales tax revenue is $63,000 or 1.9% over budget. Year-to-date federal assistance is $4.9 million compared to a $6.5 million budget. This is directly tied to lower operating expenses. Year-to-date total revenues are $20.1 million compared to a budget of $22.9 million, a negative variance of $2.8 million. Regarding the expenses, year-to-date total wages and fringe benefits are $13.5 million compared to a budget of $17.4 million. This results from fewer employees and fewer routes as a result of COVID. Year-to-date materials and supplies expense is $1.6 million compared to a budget of $2.9 million. Year-to-date total expenses are $18.5 million compared to a $24.5 million budget, a $6.0 million positive variance result. Year-to-date, after RTA's local capital charge depreciation, we have a $687,000 positive result. Additionally, the mark-to-market adjustment from investments is a negative $2.0 million. This is the result of continued rising interest rates. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Matthews Stenson. That brings us to the Planning Committee and Ms. Howard.
Thank you very much. The Finance, Personnel, and Planning Committees met for a jointly held meeting on May 17th, and as a result, the Planning Committee is recommending 2 action items for the board's consideration. Action item number 4, advertising services. Mr. Brandon Polachicchio explained that the purpose of this procurement is to contract with various vendors to provide RTA with advertising services through various media communication channels. RTA utilizes advertising to promote its programs, employment opportunities, and service information to customers and the community at large. It is the intent to have vendors in place for the next 3 years, and RTA will request quotes for specific projects on a case-by-case basis from vendors. Based upon the recommendation of the Planning Committee, I move to award the referenced firms in your board packet for advertising services for 3 years, not to exceed an estimated $120,000 each year, for a total amount of $360,000. Funds will be divided as needed between the vendors, and annual budgets will be determined by the board approved operating budget each year. In addition, I recommend that the Chief Executive Officer be authorized to carry out all action items necessary to add additional qualified vendors throughout the duration of the contract period.
This is Vince Corrado. I'll second it.
Thank you. Motion properly made by Ms. Howard and seconded by Mr. Corrado. Are there any further questions, comments, or discussion on the motion or the action item? Hearing none, I'll ask the secretary to call the roll for the vote on the motion.
Yes, sir. Mr. Williamson,
Yes.
Mr. Corrado,
Yes.
Mr. Fulkenkamp,
Yes.
Ms. Hairston,
Yes.
Ms. Hurd,
Yes.
Ms. Howard,
Yes.
Mr. Lumpkin,
Yes.
Ms. Matthews Stenson,
Yes.
and Mr. Weckesser.
Yes.
We have 9 in agreement.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. The roll having been called, the motion carries, and action item number 4 is approved.
Thank you. Action item number 5, short and long-term service plans. Mr. Polachicchio explained that since June of last year, the RTA has implemented several temporary service modifications in response to the ongoing driver workforce shortage and the reduction of ridership due to the COVID-19 pandemic. As a result of the temporary service modifications, RTA has developed and is recommending for adoption an 18-month service plan. These service plans will be implemented in phases beginning next month. Future service changes will be contingent on driver workforce levels and will target connecting people to jobs, healthcare, and education. Prior to making this recommendation over the past 2 months, the RTA released and shared with the public its proposed service plans. In total, the RTA received over 90 public comments. Feedback from the public was gathered from 3 in-person meetings and 1 virtual meeting over Facebook Live. In addition, RTA received feedback via mail, phone, social media, email, and its online interactive mapping system. The final proposed service plans were determined based on review of all public comments received, analysis of ridership on routes, specific times, time periods experiencing low ridership, and duplicative service coverage. Maintaining basic geographic service coverage and late night service were also priorities in the final design of these short and long-term plans. Based upon the recommendation of the Planning Committee, I move to approve the short and long-term service plans outlined in today's board package. Furthermore, that Chief Executive Officer be authorized to carry out all actions necessary to make these changes.
This is Al Follenkamp. I will second that.
Thank you. Motion properly made by Ms. Howard, seconded by Mr. Fulenkamp. Are there any further questions, comments, or discussion on this action item? Hearing none, I will ask the secretary to call the roll for the vote.
Yes, sir. Mr. Williamson,
Yes.
Mr. Corrado,
Yes.
Mr. Fulenkamp,
Yes.
Ms. Hairston,
Yes.
Ms. Hurd,
Yes.
Ms. Howard,
Yes.
Mr. Lumpkin,
Sorry, yes.
Ms. Matthews Stinson,
Yes.
and Mr. Weckesser.
Yes.
All 9 are in agreement.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. The roll having been called, votes having been tallied, motion to approve action item number 5 carries, and action item number 5, short and long-term service plans, are approved.
Mr. President, that concludes my update, and I am available to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Ms. Howard. That brings us to Chief Executive Officer's report. Mr. Rosinski.
Just wanted to remind everybody this Friday and Saturday, we're having our first ever interactive hiring event where applicants will be able to actually try out driving a 40-foot bus. To do this necessitated a change in the Ohio Transit Risk Pool policies, which their board happily voted to do because the other transit systems thinks it's a great idea. So we'll let everybody know how it goes. We do have at least one media station who's going to come and drive a bus as part of the process as well. So there should be good coverage on it. Mr. Caldwell's been busy. He provided some tour services for the Dayton Foundation, who then sent us 100 Cheryl's cookies, which we then distributed to our drivers. So that was very nice. And he's also organized participation with RTA in the food bank's peanut butter drive, trying to get a ton of peanut butter in 10 days. So we have barrels throughout the facility. And thanks to the power of Amazon, I ordered a jar in the name of each board member and contributed them into the barrels today. So there you go. That is my update.
Great. Any questions for Bob from the board members? All right, I'm sorry.
Real quickly, any update on RTA and the school board with regards to busing school children?
There is not. There was no, communication from them to us. So all as we know at this point is that they intend to buy some passes. I did check with Brandon, and we no longer have the school passes that we used to have years ago. So they will have to buy full adult passes for those students. And our bus routes, as we all know, don't really serve the schools, and they've indicated they're not going to pay for that service. So I'm not really sure where this will end up. We're just going to have to wait and see, what they do. This is not a contractual thing. This would be the board buying passes just like any other nonprofit or public citizen could do. So it's out of our hands at this point.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Bob, and thank you, Al. Is there any old business to come before the board today? Does anyone have any new business to come before the board?
I just have a quick question about, I guess it would be under old business. Have we progressed at all on union negotiations?
Our first session, I should say our second session, our first session with the mediator was several weeks ago, and that was just to get to know him session and make a plan session. Our first scheduled session, one of 10 or 11 in the months of June and July, is next Wednesday all day. So that will be our first chance to see where we're heading.
Another quick question, please. And that is, where do we stand on being able to meet remotely with Zoom like this? I think it was supposed to go until June. Has that been extended, or are we at a deadline?
It goes to July 1st, but this will be our last meeting because we're not going to have a July committee meeting. So we will see everybody in person for the July committee meeting and then the August board meeting. So this is the last hurrah. So Tim, you do not have to get a waving flag at this point.
Great, thank you.
All right, all very good questions. I was informed just minutes before the meeting began that there were no members of the public who had signed up to make a public comment. And unless that has changed since that communique, I will say that we have no public comment for today. That brings us to any board member comments or announcements. And rather than go down the list, I'll just invite any board member to chime in.
This is Adrienne. I appreciate the peanut butter participation.
Here's with Skippy, Adrian. I hope you like Skippy.
Just like to let everyone know that it's 12 days till Father's Day, in case you guys were wondering. 12 whole days.
I think that holiday got canceled.
He has been just ripping social media apart. Will it hurry up,
Yes.
get here, and somebody buy him a present?
I got some peanut butter I just picked
There are
up
lots of
today
peanut butter
too.
that comes your way, Jan. Smooth and creamy. Anybody else? All right. I do not believe there's any request for executive session today. So I will again repeat what was said just a few minutes ago. The next joint committee meeting will be July 19th, 2022. The next regularly scheduled board meeting will be August 2nd, 2022. And for you long-term planners, the next investment advisory committee meeting is October 20, 2022. So as you can see, all the July meeting dates have been canceled. So unless there is anything else to come before the board for the good of the order, and hearing none, I will wish everyone a safe and happy summer, or at least beginning of the summer, and we'll see you back in July. Have a great and pleasant evening, everybody.